There's some thorny issues here at COP26, and I'm going to try and interpret one or two of them for our viewers in a few moments' time. But negotiators at COP26 have now published an updated draft text of the final agreement as last-minute talks drag on towards the official deadline of the event, which is supposed to be 6 p.m. GMT later today. So let me just go through one of the thorny issues and explain to you why this matters. So we've talked a lot about fossil fuel subsidies, but this kind of opaque term kind of thing. But now there is a change, it appears, from the original draft text to the current draft text which was issued this morning. And that is regarding subsidies for fossil fuels, because apparently the likes of the Indians, the Saudi Arabians, Russians and others objected to the terminology in the draft text. The original one talked about accelerating the phasing out of coal and subsidies for fossil fuel. The current one says the phase out of unabated coal power and inefficient subsidies for fossil fuels. You'll note the word inefficient. So obviously those who objected are saying, well, ours, of course, are very efficient. So why do we care about fossil fuel subsidies? Well, I'll tell you why we care. We care because the multiple of the amount of money that is sent into subsidies on a global basis is an enormous multiple of the money that's promised for the transition and adaptation of emerging nations and the money that didn't turn up. For instance, at COP, we said there should be $100 billion a year for emerging nations to help them with climate change mitigation and adapting to new renewable technologies. What has actually turned up is a fraction of that, $80 billion per year. So it's nowhere near the amount of money that was promised, and still that money isn't on the table. So what about fossil fuel subsidies? Why should we care? Well, because it affects all of us. It affects the wealthy nations, which get enormous amounts of subsidies, whether it's in production or whether it's some form of a dousing of the true price of consumption of fossil fuels. But the numbers are absolutely enormous. And if you don't believe me, spend a bit of time doing your own work. Go to the IMF website. There's a whole section called fossil fuel subsidies, and the numbers are going to knock your socks off. If you don't believe that you're getting fossil fuel subsidies, well, then that's pie in the sky, because we're talking about post-tax energy subsidies estimated. What do you think the figure is? Bearing in mind, we're trying to find $100 billion a year for renewables for emerging nations and adaptation for emerging nations. So that's $100 billion, which hasn't turned up. What kind of numbers do you think we're talking about for global subsidies on an annual basis? Yeah, you're right. $5 trillion. Big difference, eh? $5 trillion in energy subsidies for fossil fuels, but we can't find $100 billion for emerging nations. So the post-tax energy subsidies were $4.7 trillion, 6.3% of GDP in 2015. In 2017, they were $5.2 trillion. We're talking about some serious numbers for subsidies. That's why, if you don't sort out these sticking points, then COP26 can't attain its lofty goals.